Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. Today we're going to be getting into a tier list with the new Regulation G Pokemon that were just announced a couple of days ago. Well, the format was just announced. And so we're going to have Restrictors back, and it's going to be pretty much a regulation that's just like Series 10 and Series 11, I believe, and Series 8. Yeah, I believe it was Series 8. So Series 8, yeah, Series 8, Series 10, Series 11 from Sword and Shield, where we have one restricted. So we're going to be getting into a list. I want to go ahead and break down how I want to rank each Pokemon. So for our S tiers, we're going to have the must-have answers for and busted. So this is pretty much Pokemon that you're going to see a majority amount of the time, and then when you're team building your teams, you need to take into account how to have answers into these Pokemon in your team building, because if you don't, then you'll kind of just get ran over by them, right? So those are going to be the ones that are in S. That anybody that is team building, you're making your own teams, make sure that you look into how to stop these Pokemon that are in this category. Next we have A. A is going to be good on every team, winner. So this is pretty much Pokemon that are known for winning, that are going to be good, but they're not broken, they're not busted, so they can't run over your team every single time, but they are going to be very reliable as far as getting wins and allowing you to win. And you're going to see them win a lot of regionals, and they're the ones that can compete the most with the S tier. They're like borderline S tier, but they're just like right under, because you don't necessarily have to have an answer built in your team to beat them. You can just beat them with like playing well, or just having a resistance or something like that on your team, or something that does well into that archetype. Next we have B. So B is going to be pretty much Pokemon that I feel are reliable, that are not A tier, but you can still use them on every team. They're going to most likely do well for you rather than hurt you, and they're going to be, just like I said, pretty reliable for your team. Next we have C. Fits on one type of team, pretty much niche. These are Pokemon that are not bad, but they only work on one type of team to where you can get the most out of them. And if you put them on the other team, then they're gonna kind of just be like a bit less of themselves, right? And that's gonna be our C tier. D is gonna be decent, but something does its job better. So these Pokemon aren't necessarily bad either, but there are Pokemon that do the same exact thing that they want to do, but a lot better. And you're kind of like hurting yourself using these because they're outclassed, rather than using something that's just a bit better and does the same thing, right? But of course, if these are like your favorite Pokemon, you can still make them work, but it just know that it's something that can be doing this job a lot better. Next we have the F tier, which is going to be don't use this, pretty much mediocre. These are Pokemon that are really not good. If you use them, you're most likely going to lose. You're going to have to work extra hard to try to get a win with them. And if you are able to win with them, it might just be because of your player skill more so than the Pokemon skill, right? And you always want to have your Pokemon be able to be good enough to complement your skill, rather than you have to carry the Pokemon, right? You want the Pokemon to kind of carry you. Think of it as Incineroar. Incineroar is a Pokemon that can carry its trainers because of how good it is, and not necessarily the trainer have to carry the Pokemon, right? But that's what you're gonna run into if you're using F tier. And last we have banned, but there's no banned Pokemon right now outside of Mythicals, but they're not on this list right now, so we don't have to put anything into that list. So we're gonna start from the top. Koraidon. I think Koraidon is gonna be, it's gonna be C tier for me. I want to say D tier because there is something that does its job better, but I don't think that it's a D tier Pokemon, because while it is outclassed by Groudon, I do think that it's a little bit better than D, because it can play a different role than Groudon as far as being like a fast offensive like Scarf user. And what it has, Anisha, is it can go for like a Steel type move and like Steel Terror with a Choice Scarf, and you'll be able to outspeed Flutter Mane if the Flutter Mane is not max speed with a booster energy, right? Because you got speed tie, and a Choice Scarf gives you the same speed as a booster energy. So if they're not max speed timid on their Flutter, then you can outspeed them and just one shot them with a Steel type move. So it is a niche. It's only going to fit on like Sun teams. So I think it does have that niche, but you can play it that way if that's the way you want to play it. Just a fun little, tech that I thought about. Of course, that probably won't work in open team sheet, but best of one, you definitely can get away with like removing a Flutter Mane immediately with that. Next we have Miraidon. I think Miraidon is going to be A tier. Now, while the format hasn't started and this is a new Pokemon, from what I'm seeing, like just being able to finally enable like the Quirk Drive Pokemon is just gonna be really good for it. Getting the best out of Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle was so good in every format. It just doesn't see a lot of play because it's forced to like always run booster energy to get that speed. Whereas Fluttermane can get its speed from the sun, which is a little bit easier to use, and it doesn't have to be locked into booster energy. But now you can run like Choice Specs or even like Focus Sash on your Iron Bundle to get the most out of it with the electric terrain, right? And also you help remove Indeedee psychic terrain, so side spam teams are weaker into you, and Rillaboom is a lot weaker into you because it can't really hit you for super effective damage unless it's carrying high horsepower, and you remove its grassy terrain, preventing the healing as well as the grassy glide priority, right? So Miraidon is going to be really good in my opinion. Terapagos, from what I've seen, Terapagos is also an A-tier Pokemon. It's a winner. It's very bulky and very hard to remove. Like I said, it's also new, so we haven't seen it play in the official format, but as far as what I've seen on the Showdown ladder, like the Calm Mind set and being able to just you can't Terrasilize to hit this thing for more damage, because once you do, you become weak to its Terrasilize move, which is kind of like something that you have to take into account when you're Terrasilizing to deal more damage to it. And it's just super bulky. It's a really good Pokemon. Mewtwo, I think Mewtwo's D tier. It's pretty much outclassed by Lunala and Calyrex Shadow, and pretty much any other psychic type restricted, right? I think that I don't think that there's any. I think Solgaleo and both Necrozma forms both outclass Mewtwo. Now Mewtwo could be interesting. You can make it work though, right? It gets Terrasilization now, and it gets like a lot of different coverage moves. So you could Terrasilize it to like Fire for Flamethrower, or like Ice for Ice Beam, just to get stabbed on those moves, just making Mewtwo hit pretty hard with a Life Orb, right? Or you can like go with a Choice Scarf. But being threatened by like Calyrex Shadow and Fluttermane, who also outclass you, is just not really good for this Pokemon. Next we have Lugia. I think Lugia is going to be C tier for me. I think it's a bit better than Mewtwo because of the bulk that it has plus Terrasilization. It's going to be able to fit on those bulky stall teams, right? Now those are probably the only teams that I can see it working on, but it would definitely work on those teams where you have like Glamora or something with Toxic Stall, and then you just have like Calm Mind plus Recover, and you're able to just stall out your opponent. Like if you play like a Wo-Chin on that team too to like reduce the physical attack damage, I could see this thing getting really bulky with like Wo-Chin and Incineroar and Glamora, just being able to survive everything and keep healing with recovery while you tick out from the poison, which I could see being interesting. But those are like stall teams, right? So that's why I think it's C tier. Next we have Ho-Oh. Excuse me, my voice is a little dry. Ho-Oh is gonna be B tier for me. I think being good in the Zacian, being good into like immune to Groudon's Precipice Blades, unless they use like Gravity, and just having like really good typing with Fire is just really good in my opinion. It's gonna be reliable. You can always tear this into grass to survive like a Kyogre move, and Calyrex Shadow, you can also go like Ghost Terror just to be immune to that, and just threaten it back with like Sacred Fire. And it's good into Fluttermane, good into like a lot of things that are already strong in the format, right? Of course, it doesn't really have the best matchup until Incineroar, but you can also add a Clear Amulet to this, right? And now you're really rolling with that. I don't think it's A tier, but I do think it's a bit better than C tier, because you could pretty much put Ho-Oh on any like balanced team with like a Clear Amulet, and it's gonna be able to do really well. I think it also could play well alongside Gouging Fire. Like getting those Howl Boosts plus Clear Amulet, it'll be really good for Ho-Oh. And they don't really share like a lot of the same weaknesses, right? Because Gouging Fire is weak to ground, Ho-Oh's immune to it, right? And they Ho-Oh's weak to water, but Gouging Fire has a dragon typing, so it's neutral hit. So they don't share a lot of the same weaknesses outside of like rock, right? So that'll be pretty good for Ho-Oh to play alongside Gouging Fire. Next you have Kyogre. Kyogre's gonna be A tier for me. I think it may move up to S tier later on in the format, depending on how good it is into the Sun teams. But Sun teams are gonna be pretty dominant right now, and I think that Kyogre still has a place, but its rain is gonna be removed so many times, and even removing the rain, if they have Walking Wake, you're still powering up the Walking Wake's Hydro Steam, right, with your rain, and Walking Wake 4 times resists like your water spouts. So because it's Kyogre, I'm still gonna put it in 18 because it is gonna win with it. I've been winning with it on the showdown ladder still, and to me, it does still seem like it really hurts the Groudon teams that don't have walking weight, right? And just being able to remove like their speed boost or special attack boost, and just dealing damage that Groudon can't switch into a water spout even in the sun is just really good in my opinion. But we'll see how high it gets. Groudon's gonna be S tier for me. Groudon just enables like Flutter Mane, enables Raging Bolt, it enables Walking Wake, it enables like Lilligant and Venusaur, it enables just Charizard, it enables so many different types of Pokemon that have photosynthesis, solar power, or chlorophyll abilities, and also just enabling like fire types like Ogerpon, Fire, just Incineroar. They're all able to do more damage because of the sun that you're putting out, and sun is just so good right now. Sun also removes rain, it removes the snow, it removes sand, so it's also good into the other weather archetypes. And personally, I just think that it's the best archetype. Precipitous Blades is still a good attack, even though it can miss. It's still doing a lot of damage. Groudon with the Clear Amulet is so valuable right now, and is able to just remove Incineroar when they can't intimidate you and they have to knock you off first, which causes them to take a turn to be able to do that before they can parting shot you or switch out. So Groudon is just really good in my opinion, and just being like a support restricted that can also deal damage and enable everything is just so good in my opinion. It's like the perfect mesh of offense and support with this ability and like moveset. Next we have Rayquaza. I want to build a team around Rayquaza and see how good it is. I'm gonna put it in B for right now, and I'll probably raise it depending on how good it actually is after I play with it. But I'm just thinking about Swords Dance, E-Speed with normal Terror next to Chien-Pao doing so much damage. And for that, the reason I put it in B tier, because it's an extreme speed spammer, I think that is pretty good in that role where it's able to deal a lot of damage with E-Speed, and it can do that pretty reliably, right? But we have to see how good it's going to be. Of course, Clear Amulet helps you with Intimidate, but you also, you know, have that 4 times weakness to Ice, and you are able to get faked out, unlike Dragonite, which has Inner Focus, right? So you can't Intimidate Dragonite or fake it out. So Dragonite's able to run Choice Band, while this has to run Clear Amulet plus Protect due to the fake out option. But we'll see how good it can be with that, because having Protect also might give you like different avenues of being able to play more consistently, since Dragonite doesn't have that same option to go for Protect. Alright, so now we have Dialga, the new form. I don't really know where to place this yet because I haven't seen it play like this or the Palkia, so it's just origin form, right? But from what I see, it is a lot better than regular Dialga, so we're gonna put it in B tier for now. I'll actually put both of them in B tier. I'll move them up based on how I feel like they play when I actually play with them or play against them, because I'm gonna build a team around every restricted, and once I build a team around them, I'll be able to know how good they are, right? Dialga's gonna be in C tier for me, or maybe even D tier. Just being really weak to Groudon is just not good for it. And even though you don't have that many weaknesses with fighting and ground and fighting is so good right now. And with, you know, Groudon or Koraidon going to be on majority of teams due to them being able to activate the sun and being able to be hit by super effectively by both of them with stab is just not good. So you're forced to Terra. Dialga has a lot of powerful moves that's suited in a Dynamax format. I mean, in this format, you have a lot of inaccurate powerful moves like Thunder or Blizzard or Roar of Time, which, you know, just have downsides to them for you running those powerful moves, which makes Dialga a bit weaker, which means you have to run like more consistent moves that are weaker, and when you're running those weaker moves, you're not dealing as much damage. It does get Trick Room, so I guess I could put it in C tier for that, because you could fit it on like a hard Trick Room team, and it could be like a really bulky Trick Room setter. With like a Mental Herb and like Terra, it'll be very hard to stop this thing from getting up Trick Room unless you fake it out. And if you have Indeedee with Mental Herb and Terra, then it's almost impossible to stop it from getting Trick Room up, right? So that'll be just like one type of role. I can see it playing well on Trick Room teams, and also, you know, doing well into other Trick Room mons with Terra. Palkia is going to be B tier for me. Since those two, I can't really rank them like I want to. Palkia, because it has really good typing in the Kyogre, the Hydro Pumps is really well, so it can play in range. The Dragon type Spatial Run is very consistent, and also being bulky and have a Trick Room is just really good. Dragon Water type is always really good in this format. And being able to hit Koraidon for super effective and Miraidon is really valuable in my opinion. If the rain is up or the sun is not up, you can hit Groudon with the Hydro Pump, which is really good in my opinion. So we'll see how good that is. I think that B is pretty good for right now. Giratina, I'm gonna place it in C tier. It fits on. I want to say it fits on teams that need a Calyrex Shadow answer, right? Calyrex Shadow doesn't have terrain, then you can just one-shot it with Shadow Sneak, and that's pretty much its only role, which is a niche role, but it can do that. Terrestrialization can make it, survive some hits, but I don't think it has a damage output to be any better than the C tier. This Giratina is probably going to be D because it's outclassed by that one. Even though it's bulkier, I think that this one's still better because we're not in the Dynamax format, right? And while you are bulky, you still don't have the longevity that you would if you were in a Dynamax format. Reshiram, B tier. It's right there with Ho-Ho, very powerful fire type user with a secondary dragon typing. And it's just really good into like a lot of different archetypes like Rillaboom. It's decent into Incineroar. It's decent into Urshifu because you can hit Urshifu one-shot with a dragon type move, with Urshifu's special defense not being the best. But it is weak to Groudon, right? Which is, I feel like it really falls in the same tiers like Ho and Palkia, right? All these Pokemon kind of like are not bad, but they're gonna play their role well. They're not gonna really hold you back, but it is gonna be harder to win with them. They kind of like all fall into like that same category, right? Zekrom, I think Zekrom's a bit better. It's still in that same category. I think it's better than these though. Dragon Dance is really good on it with a Clear Amulet, and the electric coverage, as you know, with like Raging Bolt or even with Iron Hands, is just always really good in the format. And being able to just remove Kyogre immediately is really good for it. And the physical type damage, like hitting Flutter Mane, being able to remove that as well, is just also good for it. I do think it's better than maybe these, but because of the Dragon Dance, but because that set might be, so predictable, you might find more success with like a Palkia or a Ho-Oh in that case, right? But they're all really around the same. Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black is gonna be, I think it's better than Zekrom. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put these in A tier, and because they have Terrestrialized, their issue used to be that Zacian removed them with Behemoth Blade, right? But now that you can Terrestrialize, like these Pokemon in the snow are gonna be very bulky, very hard to move, and they're gonna be really good at just dealing like a lot of damage over time, to where you have Pokemon in the back like a Flutter Mane or Urshifu, just like clean up Pokemon. They're really good at cleaning up after these two because they're gonna deal so much chip damage across the board to things that resist it, and things that don't resist it, they're just gonna be getting removed from the field, right? And you pretty much have both. I think this one will be better because you're not forced to run Clear Amulet, so you can run Choice Specs to do a little bit more damage. But running this with like a Gouging Fire and like a Choice Band or a Clear Amulet can be really strong in my opinion. Like their attack stats are just so freaking high. I can't really put them any lower than A in my opinion. Now, like I said, they are forced to Terrestrialize, but Zacian is not at the peak that it was in Sword and Shield, so you're not as threatened with the Steel type damage as much as you used to be. Like how you were with Zacian, and Gholdengo may not be as common in this format due to Calyrex Shadow just absolutely wrecking it, right? And now that Groudon is going to be like one of the most used restricteds, you can now use their coverage to remove Groudon, which is really good, as well as Koraidon. It's really good into it. They resist the water damage from Kyogre, and they carry, well, this carries an electric type attack that can remove Kyogre too. So it's really good in my opinion. This Kyurem is going to be F tier, is mediocre. Don't go ahead and save yourself the trouble of not using it. It is better than these two, of course, which I'm going to go ahead and put them in F tier as well. But it's still not good at all. Maybe if it wasn't a restricted format and it counted as a restricted, it would be good. But with these other forms that you can use, there's just no point to really using this, right? Solgaleo, I want to say it's B. I've had so many good memories with this Pokemon. I almost hit rank 1 with it. I think the highest I ever hit with it was like rank 10. And that was before I hit rank 1 in Sword and Shield with Yveltal. So that was like my highest placement at the time. So I had some really good memories and really good fun with this Pokemon. Using it like with a weakness policy in Dynamax with like Bulldoze, or just like on Trick Room teams or Tailwind teams. It's just really fun that it can play like either way. and I just really loved it. And plus, I'm a Leo, so like it being a lion, which is always, you know, really fun for me, and like just one of my favorite restricteds. But that aside, I still do think it's a B tier Pokemon. It's similar to Palkia. It has Trick Room. It does get wrecked by Calyrex Shadow, but it does have access to Terrestrialization, and it's good into the Kyurems. It's good into Fluttermane because of the Steel type coverage, and it does have a lot of resistances and immunities due to the typing that it has. Lunala is going to be A tier in my opinion. I think it's right up there with Kyurem Ice, or Kyurem White. And the reason that I say that is because Shadow Shield, even though it gets outclassed by Calyrex Shadow, it plays a little bit differently than Calyrex Shadow because it more so wants to play. It has Trick Room and Tailwind, but it more so wants to play in Trick Room, and it doesn't have to run like a Terra Fighting to remove Incineroar. You can just run Power Her, Meteor Beam, and just remove Incineroar from the field, right? Which is really good in my opinion, which is one of its niche that it had is Sword of Shield. Plus, just being bulky with Shadow Shield and Terra makes you like really valuable as taking hits. So it's really good in my opinion. This Necrozma, it might be a little bit worse than Solgaleo. Well, it might be right there because while it is Intimidate Food, its ability and typing makes it so it's really hard to remove this thing with Terrestrialization, right? And like just thinking like Dragon Dance with Terra Water and Clear Amulet, like this thing can really put in some work in my opinion. So it's whether you want to use it or Solgaleo, but I think that it can be good used on the right team. Necrozma Dawn Wings, I think it's gonna be D tier. It does have the ghost typing, but I think that is outclassed by Lunala, which is funny because it's a form that's stronger than Lunala. But I think that it's outclassed because it doesn't have the Shadow Shield, and it's very susceptible to getting one-hit KO. It's really Calyrex food or any Dark type or Ghost type Pokemon food, and it's really easy to remove without having Terra, right? And even without tearing, Lunala can take some hits because of his Shadow Shield, whereas Necrozma Dawn Wings can't take those hits. Your Necrozma is going to be F tier. You're better off using this one or this form rather than using that one. Zacian. How we have fallen. So Zacian, I think it's going to be A tier right now until it shows me otherwise. It still has the best typing in the game. It's still really fast. It still can threaten Fluttermane with a one-hit KO. And it still gets an attack boost on the first turn that it's out. So like using it with like Gouging Fire, of course, or something that can like boost its attack, or like Leer with Tornadus or Thunderous, where it's able to drop their defenses, can make this thing really threatening. It's still going to be A tier for me, but I don't think it's S tier right now until I start to see a little bit more results with it. This Zacian, we're going to put it in D tier. It's outclassed by the other Zacian, but it's not F tier because it's still a good Pokemon. It's still pure Fairy, and Terra Fairy play rough with this Pokemon with a choice band because it can carry an item. It can just one-shot like a lot of different Pokemon in the format, and it's still really fast. So it's still a good Pokemon. You can also build around it if you just really like this form of Zacian, but of course it's just not going to be as good as the current Zacian. Zamazenta is going to be B tier for me. I think it's up there with these. I think it can rise to A depending on how good it is. Its role is that it's a wide guard user and an Iron Defense Body Press user that's really good at that and doesn't really need its attack stat. So you can invest fully into its bulk and make this thing like super tanky, right? And with Wide Guard, it's hard to remove. It stops a lot of these spread type attacks. Think of spread type damage: Blizzard, Water Spout, Precipice Blaze, Glacial Lance, Astral Barrage. Like all of these spread type moves that are doing so much damage in the format that can remove your entire team, like from turn one, or even Terra Storm, right? It can just block those with Wide Guard, right? And they can't just remove it easily because it's not easy to hit. Plus with Terrestrialization, like you get away from your weaknesses like fire and ground and fighting, and now you're able to survive a lot of different hits. So it's really good in my opinion. I think it can rise up to A tier depending on how good utility wise it is. This Zamazenta's just like Zacian, it's not F tier, but it's not as good as Zacian. It's pure fighting, but it's still really good. Like you put a Clear Amulet on this thing and a Ghost Terror, now you can just Ghost Terror with Clear Amulet and just remove Incineroar from the field turn one, which is really cool for it, right? But because it's outclassed by the other Zamazenta, we're gonna leave it here because this Zamazenta can also do the same thing. Of course, it can't do it with a clear amulet, but it can go with a ghost terror, and you can, like, with enough damage. I think with max attack adamant, you may still be able to remove Incineroar over the close combat. I'm not sure, but I think what you get from this Pokemon defensively is just a lot better than what this can offer. So I think that is outclassed by that. Eternatus. Now, this Pokemon was so good in Series 10 when Dynamax was banned. And even though its signature move hits Dynamax Pokemon, its bulk, because it couldn't Dynamax, was very good for it. I think this Pokemon is going to be good, and it's going to get a couple showings at regionals to get some results. I don't know if it'll win. You may get a rogue one that'll win. I think people need to stop trying to run the Cosmic Power set and run it like a stall mod and actually use it as like an offensive bulky sweeper, right? Like under Tailwind, and I think it could be really good. It's deceptively fast, right? You can invest into its speed, and it can outspeed like a lot of things that they might not expect it to outspeed. I think it's really good, and with Dynamax Cannon, there's a lot of dragon types in the format right now. You're just able to remove them with like Choice Specs Dynamax Cannon. Like, it really, outside of fairy types, like, you can't really switch in well to that, right? And I think that it's a lot better than what people may give it credit for, or it's like, not even give it credit for because nobody's bashing it. I think it's just really slept on right now, but I think it's going to be good, and it may even raise up higher than this depending on how good it is. Poison Dragon typing is still really good. You are weak to Groudon, but it does give you like a lot of key resistances and immunities and stuff like that. So Calyrex Ice is going to be A tier. Matter of fact, I'm just going to be S tier. This is going to be the epitome or epitome of Trick Room teams, and it's just going to be really good. Like, being on hard Trick Room teams, being able to sweep with Glacial Lance, having a clear amulet now, so one of your checks was Incineroar, can't really check you like that anymore if you go over like a Water Terror and close combat. Now you're just really threatening, right? And then once you pick up the KO, you're starting to snowball from that point, right? And it's going to be like a really strong Trick Room user. It's going to be really Trick Room teams that are mostly going to be based around using this Pokemon plus like other Trick Room sweepers, and it's going to be really good in my opinion. Calyrex Shadow, similar thing to Calyrex Ice. I think it's probably the best restricted right now. Outside of being in Trick Room, it does have Trick Room option to, you know, with a Focus Sash and Trick Room, you can pretty much counter other Tailwind teams that, like, say Tornadus or Whimsicott goes for Tailwind, and their other Pokemon can't one-shot Calyrex, and then you just get up a free Trick Room, and then you just reverse sweep them on the Trick Room, right? But of course, like Choice Specs, just being really fast, playing on side spam teams, playing on Tailwind teams itself, it is really strong for this Pokemon. It's super fast and it hits super hard. And with Terra, it just makes this thing more threatening. It's a really good Pokemon, and I'm really happy to see it back because I want to see how good it does in this format and see if it can win another regional. It did win Worlds, so the one Worlds Championship that we had in Sword and Shield, it was the winner of it. Of course, it won with Zacian, so they won together. But Calyrex was kind of like the anomaly on that team, where Zacian had a lot of different teammates, whether it was Zacian Kyogre, Zacian Groudon with like Rinya's son, which it went against in the finals. And Zacian was just easy, like, to fit on the second as a second restricted on your team. But Calyrex Shadow was the one that was like that. It's like Zacian plus whatever else, right? And Calyrex Shadow was the one that was the +1 with the Zacian teams that made it just click. So I'm happy to see, you know, the champ back and see if it's able to reclaim another championship, since this format is most likely going to be the Worlds format. And I'm happy to see it. This thing is going to be as good as it used to be and can steal another championship or hold its title, because there weren't any championships that happened where this thing was legal and that it didn't win, right? So we'll see with this upcoming championship. Last but not least, this is going to be F tier as well. It does get Trick Room. You can do like a Focus Sash, but it's mediocre. Like, it's bug, it's grass and psychic, so being 4 times weak to bug is just not good. Like a random U-turn, just one shot in this thing is just, it's not fun in my opinion, you know. But you can try to make it work, but you'll be better off using like Calyrex Shadow Rider or Calyrex Ice Rider, right? But that's gonna be it for this list. Let me know if you guys agree with this list with a comment below. Leave a like if you like this type of content, and that's gonna be it. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.